Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage, I Tell.
All right, my name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show, and you're in the right place if you want the inside information, the data, the tips, the tricks, the strategies that you need to go out there and make better real estate and mortgage decisions for you and your family. And it's confusing out there. It is a world of crazy headlines and news reports all around housing, and if you just read the headlines, you'd sell everything you own and move into a tent. You'd start living off the land. It's crazy. And you're in the right place if you just want straight answers, data-driven. We don't get too caught up in the emotion of things. We don't have an agenda. We're just dissecting the data and answering your questions. And you are a big part of the show. Your questions are super important. Your comments. You can call or text your questions in live on the air. 855-462-7292 is the Anytime hotline. That's 855-462-7292. If you prefer to shoot an email, just visit www.mr.mortgage. That's mr.mortgage, never a .com. Just type in mr.mortgage, hit enter. The webpage will pop up, and in the upper right-hand corner, you'll find the Contact Us box, and you can just type your question, hit submit, and Dom is manning the email hotline, the Anytime hotline. He is a man of many talents back there. I think he's on his phone on Tinder too at the same time. I'm not sure. He just gave me the stink eye, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. He's not on Tinder, ladies. He's still available for you if you're interested. Anyway, I digress. But many, many ways to contact us. Shoot us an email, shoot us a text. Give us a call, 855-462-7292. Heck, strap your question to a carrier pigeon, aim him towards the studio, slap him on the butt, and we'll see if he lands outside. We can get your question on the air. But all that being said, you know that I always like to dig into the headlines and read the data supporting them. And there are a ton of headlines out there. I'm not going to recant all of them because we've been talking about them for weeks. We've been, following up some of the headlines even on the podcast. And if you're interested in listening to the podcast, go to mrmortgageradio.com. That's mrmortgageradio.com. Each week when we finish the radio show, Dom takes a recorded version of it and posts it to the podcast page as a replay. But there's all kinds of other data there also. Not data. There are other recordings of previous shows, other shows, the Daily Dose podcast. It's all at mrmortgageradio.com. So with all that out of the way, now you know how to contact us. You know how to find us online. Let's dive right in. Again, a lot of headlines this week around, the housing market. We're in a recession. Numbers are slowing. Sales volume is slowing. All of that is super true. And I'm a purist, right? You've heard me jump on the administration for not admitting that the economy is in a recession because they don't want the bad news associated with it to rub off on them. But the reality is, by definition, a recession is 2 quarters of contraction. And if you look at housing, the number of units sold has contracted, right? The number of closed sales in July and August of 22 versus July and August of 21, it's a smaller number. But guys, the prices are higher. So it's the ultimate catch-22. There are people sitting around on their couch with their CNBC app opened up on their phone, and they're reading all the headlines, and they're seeing, this housing prices are slowing. We're going to enter into I don't know what they're anticipating, that we're going to be in a depreciating market. I have no idea. Some people are saying rates are going to come back down. My point is, there's a lot of couch warriors out there who are waiting to jump into the market for that, that exact right time. And guys, that exact right time was probably right in front of you a year ago when you were making these decisions. And if you're looking at just the headlines, I get it. It's paralyzing. But, that's what we're here for. We're going to give you a little more information so you can make educated decisions. But I have an article in my hand right here that I'm going to post to the Facebook page. And you can find it at Facebook. Just search The Mr. Mortgage Show on Facebook. But the headline says, why home price growth is still up 18% year over year. And we referenced a couple weeks ago the Case-Shiller data that was released earlier, I guess last month already. We've already changed the calendar again. Wow, time is flying. But we looked through the data last month, and as per the Case-Shiller study, it was 18.1% year-over-year appreciation average across the U.S. And if you're in Miami or you're in Tampa or you're in Richmond, Virginia, if you're in one of the markets where you can hear the show, you know that there are markets that are far, far hotter than 18% year over year. But this is a national average. But basically, the article states in many, many examples comparing this market to 2008, supply and demand. And supply and demand is the only thing that controls prices. You've heard me belabor that point, and I won't stop, because until everybody completely grasps that, that's the data that you need. If more people want to sell than want to buy, prices are going to go down. If more people want to buy than want to sell, prices are going to go up. And I know there's been a ton of comparison to this real estate market, looking back to 2005, 6, 7, 8, when we had that crazy run up here in our local market that resulted in a big crash. Now, here's the thing. Inventory back then, and it's in this article that I'm going to publish to the Facebook page, shows from 2001 to 2005, total listings had grown to 2.5 million listings, right? Well, guess where we are right now? 1.3 million. So what is that? A little more than half. My point in that is there's still fewer houses for sale than the demand in the market right now. And certainly by comparison, far fewer houses for sale now compared to the crash cycle that everybody seems to be pointing at as, impending in our future. So I just don't agree with that. There's not enough supply. And this is one more example. But anyway, I share that because we saw inventory grow from 2 to 2.5 million back then, but it's been falling consistently ever since to, not an all-time low, but a significant reduction in inventory moving into the 2018 market. And from there, we started to increase a little bit. But if you're talking about 2.5 million listings to, 1.3 million listings, that's a significant difference. And it's going to take oversupply to start driving the market down. The only thing money is slowing demand. I mean, the cost of money, rather, is slowing demand, because a $400,000 house at 3% is far more affordable than it is at 6%. As a matter of fact, we'll jump into it a little bit later in the show, but I broke some comparison down to see if you bought a $400,000 house at 3% versus a $400,000 house at 4-5% versus buying a $500,000 house at 3%. You can see in these examples that the interest rate has far more impact on the payment than the house price itself. And the reality is the house price, the interest rate, all of that are secondary to the big question when you're considering buying a piece of real estate is, can you afford the payment? Does it work in your budget? And if you're paying $2,500 a month for rent now, but $2,500 a month will buy you, I don't know, a $325,000. I don't know, what your circumstances are, but let's say a $325,000 house. Yes, maybe you could have bought a $425,000 house last year, but you didn't. You're still renting. What could you buy for $325,000 that would meet your needs and get you into the game so you start building equity? Because as we mentioned, a lot of people thought this party was going to end last year, and here the Case-Shiller study shows we're up, 18% year over year. And if you're in Miami, it's 40. If you're in Tampa, it's 40. Appreciation is slowing, but we have not entered a depreciating cycle. So, even at these prices, it's super frustrating. Affordability is definitely being stretched. However, it is still a good time to buy real estate if you're going to make it your home. If you're up to some flipping strategies or you're just looking at different investment strategies, maybe the market is not right for you. But if you're looking at buying a place to live, raise your family, it still makes a lot of sense. So, hey, you hear the music, you know what that means. That music is my cue. We'll be back in 2. Sit tight. We're going to be back in 2 minutes to take your questions and dive a little deeper into the data.
Buying a home can be stressful. Willow Title Services will help you close the deal. Offering tailored services for your unique home buying needs, you'll have a single team member guide you from day one to the day you get your keys. They have a combined 50 years of experience, so trust the closing experts and contact them today. Visit WillowTitleServices.com. That's WillowTitleServices.com. Willow Title Services is rooted in experience to help you get to closing.
Here's another 5-star review.
My wife and I own a small business. And the way our accountant files our taxes, we don't show much income on tax returns. Because of this, it looks as if we don't make the money. This was a problem for our bank when we applied for a mortgage. But not for Mark. He verifies our income by using our monthly bank statements. Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team made a big difference for me. Yes, I am happy to recommend Mr. Mortgage Mark.
Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com. www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show. And you heard the man. If you want your questions on the air, call or text 855-462-7292. That is 855-462-7292. That is the Anytime Hotline. The toll-free Anytime Hotline. We are big time now, 855-462-7292. But if you're old school and you want to just email your questions, do that at mr.mortgage. That's www.mr.mortgage. Never a .com, just mr.mortgage, and the website will pop up. But before we jump into your questions, I just wanted to give a shout-out to Willow Title Services, to Heather Candela and her team. You guys hear me talking them up all the time. And I always talk about the need for an amazing team, so you know that you're represented in the transaction. I know that starts with the agent, then the mortgage company is certainly pivotal in that, but the title company plays a very, very pivotal role in a smooth real estate transaction. And Willow Title are rock stars. So if you have any title questions, if you want to sell your property on your own, or you're thinking of investing, or you want to flip some properties, Willow Title Services can get it done anywhere in the state. They're based in Boynton Beach, but they have mobile closers everywhere. Heck, Heather will send somebody to your house. We've done that before, too, where we've closed reverse mortgages at the kitchen table for the borrowers because they were unable to travel. So Heather gets it done. Heather Candela at Willow Title Services. That's willowtitleservices.com. Or give them a shout at 561-737-1630. Just a special thanks to Heather and her team. And while we're spreading the word about people that I admire, I also want to shout out one more special group, if you will, and that's Molly's House up in Stewart. If you guys don't know anything about Molly's House, Google them, check them out. It's an amazing story. We're participating in a fundraiser for them next month on October 2nd. And if you follow me on Facebook, you know we ride motorcycles. We like old cars. This is a poker run, so if you ride, you're welcome to participate in the poker run. We're going to start in Stewart, end up somewhere out in Okeechobee, and then back at Molly's House. But the cool part of it is there's a big party, Switchin' Whiskey. If you haven't seen them play, they're an awesome local band. They'll be there. There's a lot of food, fun, games. But on October 2nd, the Purple Cow Poker Run benefiting Molly's House. And if you need info, give Katie at Molly's House a call, 772-223-6659. But we'll post all the information regarding that on the Facebook page also. But hey, speaking of questions, I promised we would get to those. So let me throw it over to Dom to see what he has. Hey, Dom, what do we have teed up?
Marie sent this question. I have 2 questions. My son is working on his credit to get mortgage ready. What is a good score to get his best mortgage rate? Why are scores so different? Aren't they looking at the same info?
Hey, that is a great question. So starting with minimum credit score, anything over 580 has a program available for it. The path to available credit becomes easier after 620. And you'll see advertised out there some loan programs all the way down to 500. But the reality is, think of a mortgage transaction like a table, right? 4 legs on the table. One is, I got to do this from memory. It's been a long time since I used this analogy. One is the property itself, right? So the value of the property. One is income. One is credit. And one is assets. And we all know a table will stand with 3 legs. So if the credit is a bit of a challenge, sometimes you can overcome that by putting down a bigger down payment and lowering the loan to value ratio. Sometimes you need to bring in more assets in the form of a non-borrowing or non-occupying co-borrower. And you mentioned you're helping your son, so you might be interested in that. But I share that only because most of the time, not always, most of the time people's credit is better than they assume it's going to be. And they hold back from trying to pursue an opportunity because they think they need to do more work on their credit. But if you know his actual scores, I'd be happy to walk you through the options if you want to call us off the air. So I share that, anything over a 620 is a wider variety of available programs. But, down to about a 580, you're going to find some options. So I hope you find that helpful. And the second part of that was why are scores so different? It's interesting because I haven't figured that out if you're talking about the 3 repositories, because there's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you'll hear the term tri-merged credit report where someone is reviewing all 3 of those reports in one. And you'll see sometimes a wide variety of scores. You might see a 680, a 671, and then a 735. And just to make everybody aware, what we do is, like the Olympic judges, we throw out the high, we throw out the low, and we use the one in the middle, which sometimes the Bulgarian gymnast benefits from the most. But so the same thing in that example, we throw out that 731, and then we use the middle of the 3 scores. So the variation in those 3 is often maybe a trade line, and by trade line I mean a Visa card, a car payment. One of the debts that you have may not be reporting to that third repository that had the higher of the 3 scores. But where a lot of people have a ton of confusion is they'll look at their Credit Karma, and Credit Karma is awesome. You hear me talk about it all the time. I use it personally. Dom, you're aware of Credit Karma?
Yes, I am.
Do you use it?
No, I actually use Chase because Chase has their own built-in credit check in their app.
So you see your scores. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So that's awesome. And just so you guys know, Dom's probably got 3 800s across the top of his because he's super fiscally responsible. But I share that because there's, Credit Karma, Credit Genie, or as Dom mentioned, your local bank or your bank may provide you this service, score monitoring. With Credit Karma in particular, they're showing you a consumer credit score. And the consumer score is what is used if you're buying a car, if you're taking out a credit card payment or a credit card, if you're, going to the furniture store and you're financing furniture. That consumer credit score is typically higher. And it doesn't make any sense to me why they're different, but the mortgage score scrutinizes everything a little bit more, and the scores are typically lower. So we get a lot of questions around, my Credit Karma says I'm 720, but when you reviewed my credit, my mortgage score is 685. Why is that the case? I don't have a good answer for that. We as an industry are, beating the drum to try to get it unified, because honestly, the only person that hurts, if you will, maybe not hurts, but makes it more difficult on is you, the consumer, because if you had a super concise idea of what your score is, for example, to use that 720 Credit Karma, if I pulled your credit and reviewed your credit as a mortgage lender, and you knew that I was looking at a 720, you would have all of the information, because a 720 is a different pricing threshold for risk-associated price levels with the cost of money. And all of that ramble just basically means you may get a better interest rate, you may have access to a different program. But you should know that. You should have access to that through an accurate consumer credit reporting model, if you will. And that's not the case. Those are often consumer scores versus mortgage scores. So I know that was a long answer to that question, but I get a ton of questions around that each week, almost daily, because people are looking at those credit monitoring apps, which are awesome, by the way, because in the past you had no idea. People were flying blind, and they'd come into the office and say, hey, I think my score is this, and they were, often pleasantly surprised to learn it was much higher. But I hope that answers your question. I think at very least those credit monitoring services are awesome because they give you an idea of what direction things are moving in, and they're quite accurate in reporting the actual trade lines. You'll see a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Accurate data as far as what you owe and who you owe it to. It's just that scoring model is different, but hopefully that helps. Hey, you hear the music? You know what that means? That's my cue. We'll be back in 2. Sit tight for 2 minutes, and we're going to take more of your questions.
Buying your home is likely the biggest transaction you'll ever make. With stakes that high, you need certainty. Willow Title Services strives to take the stress away by providing a single point of contact with clear communication, resulting in a painless and positive experience. Willow Title Services has over 50 years in industry-leading and closing techniques, rooting them in the experience needed to get you to close. Call Willow Title Services at 561-737-1630 or online at willowtitleservices.com.
Here's another 5-star review.
We started our loan with a different company. They said we were approved, but at the last minute they told us there was a problem. I still don't know what went wrong, but thankfully our real estate agent told us about Mark. I was pretty stressed, but it's the perfect house, so we gave Mark a shot. He got it done. I'm not sure what was different, but I don't really care. We even got a better interest rate and with less money out of pocket than the first guy quoted us. It was a great surprise. Yes, I'm happy to recommend Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team.
Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com, www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show. And you heard Ike. If you want your questions on the air, Dom will take your text or your question at 855-462-7292. You can call or text that number anytime. That's the Anytime hotline, 855-462-7292. And we have that set up so that when we're not in the studio, that will push to my office. So we just forward it when we're not here in the studio. But it rings right here, 855-462-7292, when we're live on the air. And Dom will get your questions on the air. And as I mentioned, you can also send an email to www.mr.mortgage. That's mr.mortgage, never .com, just mr.mortgage. And you can hit the Contact Us link, and there's a place to type your question in and shoot it over to Dom. But hey, we had an interesting question. Only one so far. I went a little bit long on that because we were talking about the difference in the credit scoring models, and there's not a very good answer for that. But I want to share a fun fact. I just found this. Before we come into the studio each weekend day and do this, I print out a ton of articles, and I've got them all spread out. If you could see this, actually, I'll post a picture. Go to Facebook and search the Mr. Mortgage Show. I got this desk that's 10 feet long here, and it's all covered in papers. But I found an article that I thought was kind of funny. There's a new item that's being sold online called a mouse juggler. And, like anyone else, I'm curious when something pops up on Facebook and looks interesting. I clicked it, and I didn't know what I thought it was. I guess I expected to see, a video of somebody juggling live mice. And, my sense of humor is just twisted enough that I would have found that funny. Or at least, him trying to corral all of them is what I envisioned. But Dom, have you ever heard of a mouse juggler? You know what that is?
No, I haven't.
So in the spirit of this Zoom world that we live in and everybody's remote, a lot of people are working from home. And there's a thing that looks like a mouse pad, but it vibrates so that your mouse moves. So if you walk away from the computer, it looks like you're still working. So I'm sure that, yesterday somebody was on their couch eating bonbons watching Oprah while their mouse was jiggling around in their home office and their boss thought they were hard at work. But man, oh man, how times have advanced over the last 2 years that the work from home crowd has figured out how to keep the computer active with the mouse juggler. Hey, maybe we need a listener juggler. So when you guys get bored with me, we can just vibrate you back awake and you can listen to the rest of the show. I don't know. I found that funny. But anyway, I promised we'd keep your questions coming. So let me shoot it over to Dom to see what he has.
Mike emailed this. My wife and I want to jump into the Airbnb game. Is there a mortgage program for an Airbnb investment property?
Hey, Mike, that is a great question. We saw a lot of Airbnb activity earlier in the pandemic because, people were selling their house, having a big bucket full of cash and coming down here and renting an Airbnb for a month while they, were searching for a property. But yeah, we still see interest in it. There was a ton of interest, though, a little over a year ago. But to answer your question, you hear me talking about the landlord loan. I've talked about it in length. You can go to MrMortgageRadio.com and search a back episode. There was one just for landlord loans, but that loan program works really well for Airbnb. It actually works well for any type of rental property, but the trick in the past with any type of short-term rentals, and it's fairly new in the world of investment real estate, because in the past a lot of people already owned places and they converted them to Airbnbs, but the intent to purchase something solely for Airbnb use is fairly new in the world of real estate finance. But the challenge in the past with that was it's hard to prove history of income, right? Because there's not a lease in place, there's not a long-term tenant. You have not demonstrated your ability to manage the property as the new owner. So financing was a little trickier in the past to go traditional routes, because usually with an investment property, you're looking at leases, you're looking at experience as a property manager. But now that landlord loan that we talk about a lot is a really cool loan product, because it's looking at the potential rent of that Airbnb, because you're buying it, it's vacant. I'm assuming there might be some bookings that you're going to inherit. But the cool thing now with Airbnb is oftentimes those are managed. So you're essentially just taking over a property that's managed. There's already bookings. It's easy to pull the historical activity on the property. But more importantly, they can do a base market rent for that property monthly or short term, which is the technical term for Airbnb or VRO. I don't know what the other one is, vacation rental, some VR something. I'm not sure what the website is, but there's a few of them now. But they'll pull the average market rent for that area in both the long term, which is traditional, right, where you sign a lease with somebody, you have a tenant, and the short term, which is the Airbnb rental strategy. And it'll actually be on the appraisal and show what the potential rental income for that property is. And if it supports the debt on the property, the principal, the interest, the taxes, and the insurance, assuming there's no HOA, then I say, boom, you're a landlord, because all you need is to verify your assets and your credit score, and then the property is where the weight of the repayment is being placed, not on your tax returns, not on your ability to manage the property. So the landlord loan, we talk about it all the time. It's basically if the property will cash flow, and it doesn't have to turn a positive cash flow. It can be a 1-to-1 ratio, and it's a fundable loan. So the landlord loan is probably your best bet with Airbnb. There could be some other strategies that would work for you. And if you're open to a deeper conversation about that, I would encourage you to give us a call during the week at 855-462-7292. Hopefully that helps, but let me throw it over to Dom to see if we can answer another question.
Alexandra sent a text. My dad left us 2 lots side by side. Me and my sister want to build houses on the lots. What type of mortgage do we need?
Hey, that's an interesting question. So assuming they're 2 individual lots, because sometimes they're deeded as one. So if they're 2 individual lots and you're getting one and your sister's getting one, then it's a quite an easy process. You can do a construction perm loan. And what the technical term is construction to perm, but I just leave the 2 out. Construction to perm loan. And what that is, it's a loan that during the construction phase operates like a line of credit. So as the builder completes phases of construction, right? So think the concrete foundation, the slab is done, and that's usually the biggest draw. They'll come out and clear the lot and put the house pad on there, which is, bringing the dirt up to elevation and get it compacted, and then they'll pour the concrete foundation. That's typically a draw period. And then they'll put the walls up, the roof on, and get the roof dried in. That's typically another draw period. So that's how the loan works during the construction phase. Think of it like a line of credit that the builder accesses at stages of completion. Then once the house is completed, and by the way, during that entire process, the builder can't access funds until there are inspections. The inspections are completed, and the lender even has an inspector that comes out, not to ensure things are done to code, but the lender's inspector comes out to confirm that the work is indeed completed and has been inspected by whatever the municipality that governs the area is. But once all of it's done, there's a term CO, right? Certificate of occupancy. It's finished. The certificate of occupancy has been issued, meaning that you can now occupy the home. That loan converts to a 30-year mortgage, 15-year mortgage, whatever the mortgage term is that you agreed upon with the lender. So during the construction phase, it acts like a line of credit, and then it converts to a mortgage. So let's say it takes 7 months or a year. Let's say it takes a year to build the house. For that first year, it's a line of credit. Oftentimes, you don't even have to make payments. The interest required to service the debt is built into the loan. And then at conversion, it becomes a 30-year mortgage, and you start making your payments accordingly. So I hope that helps. You and your sister can do it at the same time. If you need help around that, give us a shout, 855-462-7292. That's 855-462-7292. But you hear the music, you know what that means. That is my cue. We'll be back in 2. We're going to take a very short break, 2 short minutes. We'll be back for more of your questions. Sit tight.
New to South Florida and ready to sit down roots with a new home? Willow Title Services makes closing a smooth, painless, and positive experience. With individual service for each buyer's needs, Willow Title Services has a combined 50 years plus of experience with industry-leading closing techniques. Call Willow Title Services today at 561-737-1630. That's 561-737-1630. Online at willowtitleservices.com. Willow Title Services is rooted in experience to help you get to closing.
Here's another 5-star review.
As a realtor, I have a bunch of mortgage brokers to choose from, but I prefer to work with Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team. In this crazy market, there is no room for error, especially on the mortgage side. Mark's team moves fast, keeps everybody in the loop, and makes things happen. They always give my clients a great deal and take the time to walk them through every step of the process. When you're considering a lender, I encourage you to talk to Mark Eitel and the Mr. Mortgage team.
Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com, www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel. You heard the man, 855-462-7292, 855-462-7292. Get your questions on the air. Right now, Dom is manning that hotline, 855-462-7292. But we've had some interesting questions so far. And, hey, I was just thinking about this during the break because I heard the commercial for, you hear me talk about all the time, the need for a really great agent. And a lot of times that goes overlooked, and I just wanted to give a shout out to a friend of mine that I work with on some transactions, Sherry Roberts out in Loxahatchee. She's a rock star agent, and this example that I'm about to share is another demonstration of how the right team can make a huge difference. She was helping somebody through a transaction that was in probate, and it was a very interesting circumstance. So a gentleman in his 50s passed away, and his mother was the executor of the will. Well, she was in her 90s. The guy might have been in his 60s. I don't remember, but I know mom was 91. So she's acting as the executor, and Sherry sells the property. And there's an amazing, 22-year-old young lady who's going to buy her first home. And Sherry gets everybody together, makes it work. Well, guess what happens? In the middle of the transaction, mom dies. So it has to go through probate a second time. And now the sister is in charge of mom's probate. So long story short, it took about 6 months to get through both probates. In the course of that activity, the interest rates almost doubled. It was quite a challenging transaction, but having, super professional, experienced people involved in a transaction make a huge difference, and we just saw that happen. So I don't know why I thought of that. I had my headphones off and I heard that spot, and it made me think of, that it's a big deal who's representing you. 2 years ago, you just put a sign in the yard and there were people lining up to buy the house. And, we're moving into a market where skill, expertise, and relationships mean more now than ever before. And I'm not trying to sell you on any particular agent. I just wanted to thank her for being a pro, but more importantly, to point out the difference. And I see it every day, a very professional group of people servicing a transaction can make it so much smoother. So anyway, I wanted to share that. I don't know why it just jumped into my head, but I know Dom's got some questions ready, so let me throw it over to him.
Steve sent a text. I heard Bank of America is doing a special loan for minority communities. Can you explain this?
Hey, Steve. So this one's interesting, and it's garnering a lot of buzz out there in the mortgage and real estate world. And I'm actually surprised that you've already heard about it, because it was news that was released this week. And there's a lot of people trying to figure out how that's legal, right? Because the specific language around the program is that this loan is designed for Black and Hispanic communities. It says that right in the language, and the gut reaction to a lot of people is that it's violating the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which prohibits any exclusion to access of credit for race. So right away that raises some curiosity. But if you read the languaging of this program, it was quite strategic how they wrote it, in that it's targeting Black and Latino communities. So it's not saying that, an Asian person who wants to move into, a predominantly black community, or, a gringo who wants to move into a Latino community, they're not going to be excluded from the loan. It's going to be interesting to see how they define the minority communities, from a boundary standpoint, because I think where it's going to become a little sticky is, redlining and steering are also violations in the lending laws. And if you're excluding one community because of geographic area, or you're driving people into another community because of access of credit, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I mean, I see the need to service underserved communities, regardless of what it is. I grew up in a neighborhood that represented an underserved community, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I have some concerns. It's 100% financing, so there's no down payment requirement. They're not looking at debt to income. They're not even looking at credit score. They're looking at ability to repay. So, if you're paying your rent and you're paying your electric bill, I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to work yet. I'm probably going to reserve an opinion. I like what's happening in the sense that we're trying to create opportunity for more people. I just don't like the idea of inclusion by excluding. And what I mean by that is we've entered an interesting place in our society where, and you guys who listen to the show know that I don't do politics. There's guys on the station who do it way better than I do. And quite honestly, I don't make that I'm into the data. I'm a data head, so I don't get into the social aspects of the news. I look just at the data. But we're in an interesting place where we're trying so hard to include people that we're excluding others, and we're saying that's okay because they've always been included. And I don't know. I struggle a little bit with that. Being a host of a radio show and of a podcast, I am in that ecosystem, if you will. And I was involved in a conversation with some guys who are national radio hosts and big time podcasters, and they had just come back from a podcast event. And there was a gentleman there who's, controversial. He has a very strong political opinion. He's got the 6th highest rated radio show in the country. And he was there unannounced. He wasn't there as a speaker. He was just attending. It was an industry event. And it was interesting because the event was promoted as all inclusive. And in the world of radio and podcasts, everybody's represented. You can find a podcast on, trans Olympic athletes who walk poodles in the park. There is as specific as you want to get. So it's a very wide world of people. And he attended, and he's got a very strong political opinion and is known for it. And one of these, I don't know even how to say it and be delicate, but one of these other groups were there and took some photographs of him in the venue and posted it to Twitter and social media and said they felt threatened by such a controversial figure being there. And the event coordinators apologized and said they would be doing a better job of making it feel all inclusive. And I just thought, wow, inclusive means including everybody. So if we're excluding him so everybody else feels included, I don't know that we're doing it right. I think we need to get to a place where we just choose not to judge others for whatever their preference is, political, sexual, social, whatever it is, so we can all be at the same party together and let everybody be each other. And this kind of reminds me of that. Are we excluding opportunity to some to include others in the opportunity? I just don't know. And I didn't mean to get all airy-fairy and political on that. I just see us drifting off into this strange area that we've never been socially, where we're so focused on, putting our arms around everybody that we're pushing some people out of the hug and justifying it because they've already gotten their hug in the past. So anyway, I think it's going to be interesting. We'll do more on it if it becomes a viable program. Right now, they're just rolling it out to certain metros. I know Miami is one of them. There are some key locations in Texas. I'm not opposed to it on the principle alone. I'm opposed to some of the structuring of it if it's not going to be available on a wider platform, if you will. But let me say this. I do think that, zero down payment, zero credit score requirement, all that stuff scares me because it does remind me a little bit of the old days when we got in over our heads lending. Regardless of race, regardless of neighborhood, I think, a strongly underwritten borrower is going to make the most sense to support community values. Whether it's a Black community, a Latino community, an Asian community, or a bunch of, hillbillies out there, we need the values to be supported by people who, can move in, pay the bills, keep the upkeep going. And if you're loosening guidelines to make that an opportunity, then I think there could be potential problems down the road. And it's regardless of race, regardless of neighborhood. So I throw all that out there just to say I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but we are going to watch it carefully. So, hey, I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. You know what that means. We are going to jump into a break. We're going to be back in 2 very short minutes to take more of your questions. Sit tight. We'll be right back.
Buying a home can be stressful. Willow Title Services will help you close the deal. Offering tailored services for your unique home buying needs, you'll have a single team member guide you from day one to the day you get your keys. They have a combined 50 years of experience, so trust the closing experts and contact them today. Visit WillowTitleServices.com. That's WillowTitleServices.com. Willow Title Services is rooted in experience to help you get to closing.
Here's another 5-star review.
We kept our business above water with credit cards during the pandemic. I'm glad we did. Business is better than ever. But I didn't want to be a slave to those credit card payments. I called Mark about the rec loan he advertises. Long story short, we did a rec refinance and paid off everything, even the car. Now we only have the mortgage payment. We're saving a bunch every month. Yes, we are happy to recommend Mark and the Mr. Mortgage team.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show, where each week, right here, same time, same station, we gather with our coffee, our tequila, our cold beer, our warm beer, if it came out of the backseat of Dom's car from last night's party. And we go through the headlines of the week regarding mortgages and real estate. But more importantly, we take your questions and your comments, and we dive deep and do our best to answer them. So 855-462-7292. That's the number. You heard the man, 855-462-7292. That's how you get your questions on the air, and we do appreciate them all the time. So that's the Anytime Hotline, 855-462-7292. But yeah, keep them coming. We've had some really good questions. I didn't mean to turn that into a philosophical or airy-fairy or political by any means answer to that BOA loan program. I think sometimes we jump quickly to solutions, and we may be creating other problems. And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. I'm just saying that I am cautiously optimistic and am going to watch it carefully to see what happens, because, sometimes the solution isn't to just throw money at something. It's not to, I don't know. We just did that with student loans. People haven't had to make student loan payments for the last 2 years, but we found the student loans burdensome enough to forgive $10,000 and $20,000 of them. I just don't understand that. I think the better way to do it is to provide access to everybody in the form of mortgage credit with the programs that we have available, because we do a lot of FHA loans for first-time home buyers, they do allow a lower credit score, a higher DTI, and sometimes you need to bring in a co-borrower to make a deal work. But I think access to the programs that are already available on a wider level is probably a better answer than creating programs that might just trip the borrowers up in the future. That's all I have to say about that. There's a great organization called the National Minority Mortgage Brokers Association. I believe that's the title there. I'll be at the conference in Orlando in November, and I think by November we're going to have a pretty good handle on how this program works and see if anybody else rolls it out. But I appreciate that question, and we'll bring you more information on that as it becomes available. But hey, I'm going to throw it over to Dom and see if we can squeeze in another.
Melissa sent this one. I'm worried about inflation, interest rates rising, and a recession. We'd like to pull out some equity and have cash on hand. Can we still do this even though we're not paying off debt and lowering our interest rate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you hear me talk about the REC refinance a lot, and that one is designed just to pay off debt. REC stands for Reduce, Eliminate, and Consolidate, designed specifically to repay debt. But yes, you can just pull cash out if you want to buy a Corvette, you want to put a pool in, or you just want to go to Vegas. If you have the equity, you are certainly entitled to pull it out. But if you have questions around that, give us a shout during the week, 855-462-7292. But I appreciate your question. Hey, and we're at the spot in the show where I always like to say thanks. We've had some great questions. I always appreciate your participation. Dom has been jumping around back there between the text line and the email line, and working the board and the computer. He looks like an octopus swinging around back there. But we've had a great time so far. But as I mentioned, we're at that portion of the show where I'm going to ask you a favor. If any of this has resonated, if you've enjoyed it, if you think someone can benefit from the information that we've shared, please turn them on to the show. Share us with them. They can listen to all the back episodes. They can find a lot other content on MrMortgageRadio.com. That's MrMortgageRadio.com. But if you have a friend, family, or coworker who's got mortgage or real estate questions or thinking of buying or selling or refining, please introduce them. I'm hoping I can count on you to introduce them to us. MrMortgageRadio.com. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook and search The Mr. Mortgage Show. Or go to the website, www.mr.mortgage. Remember, there's never a .com. Just type in mr.mortgage. And we will pop up. And hey, in reference to all of the articles that we shared on the show today, I'm going to post those to that Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search The Mr. Mortgage Show. But you hear that music, you know what that means. We have had another week of fun with you right here on WJNO. We always enjoy your participation and encourage your questions. So if you need us during the week, call us at 855-462-7292. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we will see you right back here next week, same time, same station.
That's a wrap. Join Mark Eitel next week for more thrilling, edge-of-your-seat discussions about real estate and mortgages right here on The Mr. Mortgage Show.